The April wind came off Lake Mille Lacs like it had forgotten spring was supposed to mean something, carrying a cold that cut through denim and leather and settled into the bones. Gideon Larson stood at the edge of the gas station lot, watching his breath cloud in front of him, while the rest of the North Country riders filled their tanks and stamped their feet against the chill. His jacket was somewhere on I-35, probably shredded across 3 lanes of highway after his saddlebag strap snapped at 70 miles an hour. He'd pulled over too late, watched his gear scatter like confetti, and managed to save his wallet and phone, but not the leather jacket he'd worn for 22 years. The jacket with the patches, the jacket with his daughter's hospital bracelet sewn into the inside pocket. He was 55 years old, and he hadn't cried since Anna's funeral. He wasn't going to start now over a piece of leather. Frost, his road name, earned in the winter of '94 when he'd ridden through a blizzard to reach his dying mother. "You okay?" Decker, the club's sergeant-at-arms, was watching him with the careful expression of a man who knew better than to push. "Fine, just cold. We've got a spare hoodie in the van. Won't fit right, but I said I'm fine." Decker nodded and walked away. Frost watched him go, then turned back to the lake, visible through the bare trees. Gray water, gray sky, gray everything. Minnesota in April was a promise that hadn't been kept yet. The gas station was a relic. Hand-painted sign, single pump island, a little convenience store that sold bait and beer, and not much else. Next door sat a house that had seen better decades, its paint peeling and its porch sagging, a child's bicycle lying on its side in the brown grass. The front door opened, and a girl stepped out. She was maybe 8, small for her age, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and a jacket that was too big for her, a man's flannel-lined work coat that hung past her knees. She stood on the porch and watched the bikers with the solemn curiosity of a child who'd learned that the world was full of things worth watching. Frost turned away. He didn't look at children anymore, not since Anna. But a moment later, he heard footsteps in the gravel, and when he turned back, the girl was standing 3 feet away, holding out the jacket. Her jacket. The too big coat with the flannel lining. "You're cold," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You're shaking." He looked down at his hands. She was right. He was shaking, a fine tremor he hadn't noticed. The cold had gotten deeper than he'd realized. "I can't take your coat, sweetheart." "It was my daddy's." She said it matter-of-factly, the way children do when they're stating something true but too large to feel. "He doesn't need it anymore. He's in heaven." Frost felt something shift in his chest, a tectonic movement in a landscape he'd thought was frozen solid. "I'm sorry about your daddy." The girl didn't respond. She just held the jacket out, patient, waiting. Her arms were thin and pale, goosebumps rising on the skin below her t-shirt sleeves. "You'll freeze," he said. "Mama says we're supposed to help people who need it, even when it's hard." She pushed the jacket toward him. "Please, you need it more than me." He took it. He didn't know what else to do. The fabric was worn soft with years of use, and it smelled like sawdust and pine. A working man's smell, the smell of someone who'd built things with his hands. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily." She was already backing toward the house, hugging herself against the cold. "Lily Kowalski." "I'm Gideon. People call me Frost." Something almost like a smile flickered across her face. "That's a funny name for someone who's cold." Before he could respond, a woman appeared on the porch, mid-30s, tired in a way that went deeper than sleep could fix, her dark hair escaping from a clip. She saw Lily, saw the missing jacket, saw Frost standing there holding it, and her expression cycled through confusion, alarm, and something harder to name. "Lily Marie, get inside." "But Mama, he was inside, now." Lily went, casting one look back over her shoulder before the screen door closed behind her. The woman came down the porch steps, her arms crossed, her jaw set. "I'm sorry," Frost said, holding out the jacket. "She just came up and I saw." The woman didn't take the coat. She does that, gives things away. Her lunch at school, her toys, her voice caught. "Her father's things, I can't make her stop. She said he passed. 6 months ago. Logging accident." The words came out flat, rehearsed, the way you say something you've said so many times it's lost its edges. "She hasn't been the same since. Barely talks to anyone except..." She gestured vaguely. "Strangers. People she decides need help. Frost looked at the jacket in his hands, then at the house, then at the woman whose name he didn't know, but whose grief he recognized like his own face in a mirror. "My daughter died 15 years ago," he said. "Leukemia. She was 11. He didn't know why he told her. He never told anyone, not anymore. But something about this woman, this girl, this cold gray day, made the words come out before he could stop them. The woman's expression shifted, not softening exactly, but opening, a door left ajar instead of locked. "I'm Sarah," she said. "Sarah Kowalski. Gideon Larson, though most people—" "Frost, I heard." She almost smiled. "Lily's right. It's a funny name for someone who's cold. Your daughter's got a good heart, giving away her father's coat to a stranger. Too good, maybe." Sarah looked toward the house. "She thinks if she gives enough away, something good will come back. I don't know how to tell her it doesn't work like that. Doesn't it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she finally took the jacket from his hands. "Keep it. She'll just find someone else to give it to if I put it back in the closet. And you look like you need it more than a coat rack does." "I can't." "You can. Lily's rules." The ghost of a smile again, there and gone. "Besides, I've got enough to worry about without adding pneumonia to the list." Frost heard something in her voice, a weight beneath the words, the particular sound of someone carrying more than they could hold. "What kind of worries?" "The usual. Bills, mortgage, bank that doesn't care about usual." She shook her head. "Sorry, you don't need to hear this. You've got your own road to ride." She turned to go back inside. Frost should have let her, should have put on the dead man's jacket and climbed on his bike and ridden away into the gray afternoon. Instead, he said, "We're here through the weekend. Charity run up to Brainerd tomorrow, but we're camping at the state park tonight. If you need anything—" "I don't need anything." The words came fast, automatic. Pride, he recognized. The same pride that had kept him from asking for help after Anna died, after his marriage fell apart, after everything he'd built turned to ash and blew away. "Everybody needs something," he said. "Doesn't make you weak to admit it." Sarah stopped on the porch steps. She didn't turn around. "The bank's foreclosing," she said quietly. "My husband had debts I didn't know about, equipment loans, a second mortgage. I've been fighting it for 4 months, but—" She shook her head. "They're auctioning the house in 2 weeks. Lily doesn't know yet. I don't know how to tell her." "What about family? Friends?" "My parents are gone. His are in Florida and want nothing to do with us. And friends—" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "People don't know what to say to a widow. They stop calling, stop coming by. After a while, you stop expecting them to." Frost thought about the years after Anna, the silence that grew in his house like mold, filling every room. The friends who'd meant well, but hadn't known how to bridge the gap between his grief and their discomfort. "I know something about that," he said. Sarah finally turned. Her eyes were bright, but she wasn't crying. Frost suspected she'd learned not to cry a long time ago. "Your club," she said. "The North Country Riders. I've heard of you. You do the toy drive at Christmas, the food bank runs, among other things. Are you—" She stopped, started again. "Could you help? I don't know how. I don't have money to pay you, but Lily, she's all I have, and if we lose this house, I don't know where we'll go." The words cost her something. Frost could see it in the way she held herself, the way her hands clenched at her sides. Asking for help when you'd built your whole life on not needing it, that was its own kind of courage. "Let me talk to my guys," he said. "We'll see what we can figure out." He pulled on the jacket, Lily's father's jacket, Thomas Kowalski's jacket, still carrying the scent of sawdust and pine, and walked back to his bike. Decker was watching him with raised eyebrows. "What was that about?" "Trouble," Frost said. "The kind we might be able to help with." He swung onto his bike and looked back at the house. Lily was at the window, her small face pressed against the glass. She lifted one hand in a wave. Frost lifted his in return. The jacket was warm, warmer than it should have been, for something that had belonged to a dead man. He zipped it up and felt something crinkle in the inside pocket, a piece of paper he hadn't noticed before. He pulled it out. A child's drawing, creased and faded, showing a stick-figure family, a tall man, a woman with dark hair, and a little girl between them, all of them smiling under a yellow sun. On the bottom, in a child's careful handwriting, "My Family," by Lily, age 6. Frost folded the drawing carefully and put it back in the pocket. next to his heart. 2 weeks, a foreclosure. A little girl who gave away everything she had because she believed something good would come back. He was going to make sure she was right. The clubhouse was a rented cabin at Mililakskathio State Park, pine walls and wood smoke and the smell of coffee that had been on the burner too long. Frost gathered the core members around the table that night. Decker, Mama June, who handled their charity accounts, Red, who'd been a contractor before his heart gave out, and young Axel, who was still a prospect but had a head for research. He told them about Sarah, about Lily, about a jacket that had belonged to a dead man and a drawing in the pocket that had cracked something open in his chest. 2 weeks, Decker said when he finished. That's not much time. No. How much does she owe? I didn't ask. Didn't seem right. Mama June pulled out her phone, started typing. Kowalski, you said? Thomas Kowalski, logging accident 6 months back? That's him. Give me an hour. I know someone at the county recorder's office. She stood, already dialing. I'll find out what we're dealing with. While she made calls, Frost walked outside and stood at the edge of the lake. The water was black under the starless sky, and the cold had teeth, but he didn't go back in. The jacket kept him warm enough. Thomas Kowalski's jacket. Lily's father's jacket. He thought about Anna. He tried not to, but standing here in the dark with someone else's grief wrapped around his shoulders, he couldn't stop the memories from coming. Her laugh, bright and sudden, the way she'd hold his hand during treatments, squeezing tight when the needles went in. The last morning, when she'd been too weak to squeeze at all, his ex-wife blamed him, said he'd been too focused on the club, too absent during the hard years. She wasn't wrong. He'd ridden when he should have stayed, worked when he should have watched, and by the time Anna was gone, there was nothing left between them but silence and recrimination. He hadn't seen Christine in 12 years. Last he heard, she'd remarried, moved to Oregon, built a new life. That didn't include him. He didn't blame her. Some griefs were too heavy to carry together. Frost! Mama June's voice from the cabin door. You're going to want to hear this. The news was worse than he'd expected. Thomas Kowalski had been in debt to the tune of $87,000, equipment loans for his logging business, a second mortgage taken out without Sarah's knowledge, credit cards maxed to the limit. When he died, the life insurance had barely covered the funeral. The business assets, trucks, chainsaws, equipment had been seized and sold, netting $30,000 against the debt. The house was all that was left, and the bank wanted it. The auction's in 12 days, Mama June said. Starting bid is $42,000. That's what's left on the mortgage after credits. Can she fight it? Legal options? She tried. The paperwork's all in order. Thomas signed everything himself. She didn't know about any of it until after he died. Mama June shook her head. Poor woman's been drowning in this for 6 months with nobody to throw her a line. So we throw her one. With what? We've got maybe $8,000 in the charity fund, and that's earmarked for the summer camp scholarships. She looked at him, not unkindly. I know you want to help, Frost, but $42,000 in 12 days? That's not charity. That's a miracle. Then we find a miracle. How? He didn't have an answer. He just had a jacket and a drawing and a little girl who believed that kindness came back around. The next morning, he rode back to the Kowalski house alone. Sarah was on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching him pull in with an expression he couldn't read. Thought you'd be halfway to Brainerd by now, she said. Charity runs not till noon. Wanted to check on you. We're fine. That's not what I asked. She looked away, toward the lake, toward something only she could see. Lily had nightmares again last night. She keeps dreaming about the house falling down around her. I don't know how to tell her it's not a dream. Frost climbed off his bike and walked to the porch steps. I talked to my people. We know about the debt, the auction. Sarah's face went rigid. You had no right. You asked for help. Help means understanding the problem. I asked if you could help. I didn't ask you to dig through my life. Her voice had an edge now, sharp with the particular anger of someone whose privacy had been the only thing she had left. You don't know what it's been like, finding out after he died that everything was a lie, that the man I married had been hiding a mountain of debt for years, smiling at me across the dinner table while he signed away our future. I'm not judging you. Everyone judges, the bank, the lawyers, the people at church who whisper when they think I can't hear. She set down her coffee cup hard enough to slosh. Poor Sarah. Didn't even know her own husband. Must have been blind not to see the signs. Were there signs? The fight went out of her. She sat down on the porch swing, suddenly looking smaller than she had a moment before. He worked late, a lot. I thought he was building the business, saving for Lily's future. Turns out he was just digging the hole deeper. She pressed her palms against her eyes. He was a good man. He was. But he couldn't ask for help, couldn't admit he was failing, so he just kept borrowing, kept hiding, kept smiling like everything was fine. Pride's a hell of a thing. Is that what you call it? She laughed, but it was hollow. I called it lying. I called it betrayal. I called it leaving me and Lily to clean up a mess we didn't make. The screen door creaked. Lily stepped out, still in her pajamas, her hair tangled from sleep. She saw Frost and her face lit up, a child's pure, uncomplicated joy at seeing someone she'd decided to trust. You're wearing Daddy's jacket. I am. Is that okay? Yeah. She came to stand beside him, her small hand finding his without hesitation. Daddy would like you. He liked people who rode motorcycles. He said they knew how to be free. Frost felt that tectonic shift again, that movement in the frozen landscape of his chest. He knelt down so he was eye level with her. Lily, I found something in the pocket, a drawing you made. Her eyes went wide. My family picture? That's the one. It's beautiful. I made it for Daddy before he went to heaven. I put it in his jacket so he wouldn't forget us. Her voice was matter of fact, but her hand tightened on his. But then Mama said Daddy's not coming back, so I gave you the jacket instead, so you wouldn't forget us either. Frost didn't trust himself to speak. He just nodded, and Lily nodded back, satisfied, and went back inside to get dressed. Sarah was watching him when he stood up. Something in her expression had changed, the anger replaced by something more complicated. She hasn't talked that much to anyone since Thomas died, she said quietly. Not even me. Kids know things. They see things adults don't. What does she see in you? He thought about it. Maybe someone who understands what it's like to lose something you can't get back. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, the auction's in 12 days. I don't have $42,000. I don't have $4,200. And even if your club could raise some of it, that's charity. That's being the widow everyone has to save. There's no shame in letting people help. Easy to say when you're the one helping. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself. I've been fighting alone for 6 months. If I stop now, if I let other people carry this, then what was the point? What was all that struggle for? Maybe the point was getting to the place where you could let go. She didn't answer. Frost let the silence sit, the way you did with horses and children and grieving women who needed time more than words. A car pulled into the lot next door, a black sedan with a rental sticker on the bumper. A man got out, mid-50s, gray suit, the kind of face that had learned to deliver bad news without flinching. He walked toward them with a folder in his hand. Mrs. Kowalski, I'm Dale Worthington from Northland Federal. We spoke on the phone. Sarah's face went pale. The auction isn't for 12 days. You said I had 12 days. You do. But the bank has received an offer on the property. A cash buyer, willing to close immediately. If you could match the offer, we could avoid the auction entirely. How much? Worthington opened the folder, consulted a page. $55,000. The buyer is willing to pay above the auction minimum for a quick close. I don't have $55,000. I understand. In that case, the bank is prepared to offer you a settlement. Sign over the deed today, and we'll forgive the remaining debt. You'll walk away clean. No auction, no public record, no home. Sarah's voice cracked. No place for my daughter to grow up. No. She stopped, pressing her hand to her mouth. Worthington waited. His face was professionally sympathetic, the expression of a man who'd learned to separate himself from the damage he delivered. I'm sorry, Mrs. Kowalski, truly. But business is business. The bank has obligations to its shareholders. If we don't recover these assets, get off my property. Frost's voice surprised him with its calm. Now. Worthington looked at him, at the leather jacket, the gray beard, the patches visible beneath the open flannel, and something flickered in his expression. Wariness, maybe, or the particular calculation of a man assessing a threat. I'm just doing my job, sir. Your job is done. She heard the offer. Now leave. Worthington held up his hands, a gesture of surrender that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Kowalski, I'll be in touch. You have until Friday to accept the settlement. After that, he shrugged. The auction proceeds as scheduled. He walked back to his car and drove away. Sarah stood frozen on the porch, her face blank with shock. 55,000, she whispered. I was fighting to save 42, and now it's 55. How is that possible? Frost didn't have an answer. He just stood beside her, wearing her dead husband's jacket, and watched the black sedan disappear down the road. 12 days had just become 4. The cabin that night was chaos, phones ringing, laptops open, voices overlapping, as the North Country Riders tried to turn 4 days into a miracle. Axel had set up a crowdfunding page within an hour of Frost's return. The story was simple. A widow, a little girl, a jacket given in kindness. By midnight it had raised $6,000. By morning, 12. Strangers sharing, donating, leaving comments about their own losses, their own moments of unexpected grace. It's not enough, Mama June said, scrolling through the numbers. We're at 14,000, and it's slowing down. The algorithm buries these things. After the first day, unless something goes viral. Then we make it go viral. Decker was on his phone, texting contacts in other chapters. I've got the Iron Range boys coming down tomorrow. 30 riders, maybe more. We do a rally at the house, get the local news out, put a face on the story. Will that raise $40,000 in 3 days? Nobody answered. Frost stood at the window, watching the sun rise over the lake. He'd been awake all night, his mind running circles around a problem that didn't have a solution. $55,000, 4 days, a little girl who believed that kindness came back around. Who's the cash buyer? He asked. Axel looked up from his laptop. What? The bank said there's a cash buyer. Someone willing to pay $55,000 for a quick close. Who is it? I don't know. They didn't say. Then find out. Axel's fingers flew across the keyboard. Frost watched the lake and thought about Thomas Kowalski, a man who'd hidden his debts behind a smile, who'd dug himself into a hole rather than ask for help. He understood that impulse. He'd lived it after Anna. The way grief turned inward became something shameful, something you couldn't share because sharing meant admitting you weren't strong enough to carry it alone. Got it. Axel turned the laptop around. The cash buyer is a company called Lakeview Holdings LLC, registered in Minneapolis. They've bought up 6 properties in this area in the last 2 years. What for? Looks like development. Vacation rentals mostly. They buy cheap, renovate, flip to tourists. Axel scrolled through the results. The principal owner is a guy named Martin Vance, real estate developer, big in the Twin Cities. Vance? Red said the name slowly, and something in his voice made Frost turn around. Martin Vance? You know him? Red's face had gone pale. He's my brother-in-law. My wife's brother. The room went silent. Frost felt the ground shift beneath him, that familiar feeling of a plan coming apart. When's the last time you talked to him? Years. We had a falling out after... Red stopped, shook his head. Doesn't matter. Point is, I know how he operates. He finds properties in distress, makes lowball offers, pressures sellers to close quick. He's not breaking any laws, but he's not exactly a saint either. Would he back off if you talked to him? I don't know. We didn't part on good terms. Red rubbed his face with both hands. My wife died 3 years ago. Breast cancer. Martin wanted to sell her share of the family cabin, split the proceeds. I said no, said it was the only piece of her I had left. He's barely spoken to me since. Frost thought about the jacket in the other room, the drawing in the pocket, the way the dead held onto us and we onto them. Call him, he said, not to ask for favors, just to find out what we're dealing with. Red made the call. Frost listened to one side of a conversation that started tense and got worse. Voices rising, old wounds reopened, the particular cruelty of family arguments that had been festering for years. When Red hung up, his face was gray. He's not backing off. He says it's business, not personal. Says if I wanted to keep properties in the family, I should have thought about that before I picked a fight over the cabin. Did you tell him about Sarah, about Lily? He doesn't care. Said there's always a sob story, and if he let every sob story stop him, he'd never close a deal. Red's hands were shaking. I'm sorry, Frost. I thought maybe, but he's not the man I remembered. Maybe he never was. The darkest moment came on Thursday morning, less than 24 hours before the deadline. The crowdfunding had plateaued at $31,000. The news had run a segment, but it was buried in the back half of the broadcast, squeezed between a weather report and a story about a dog who could skateboard. The rally at the house had drawn 50 writers and a handful of neighbors, but the donations had slowed to a trickle. Frost rode to the Kowalski house to give Sarah the update. He found her on the porch with the settlement papers in her hand. "I'm going to sign," she said before he could speak. "Sarah, don't." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were red. "I've been up all night thinking about it. You've all done so much, more than I had any right to ask for. But it's not going to be enough. And I can't—" She pressed her hand to her mouth. "I can't let Lily watch them auction our home. I can't make her stand there while strangers bid on her memories. At least this way, it ends clean. We walk away with nothing, but we walk away together. You'd be giving up. I'd be protecting my daughter." Her voice cracked. "That's all I have left. The only thing Thomas didn't mortgage or sign away, and I won't let pride destroy that, too." Frost looked at the papers in her hand, the signature line at the bottom, blank, waiting. One pen stroke and it would all be over. The fight, the hope, the impossible belief that kindness could outweigh the cold mathematics of debt and foreclosure. "Where's Lily?" "Inside. She doesn't know. I haven't told her yet." "Let me talk to her." "Why? So you can tell her you tried? So she can watch another person walk away? So she can decide for herself whether to keep fighting?" Sarah stared at him. Something moved behind her eyes. Anger, grief, the particular exhaustion of a woman who'd been strong for too long. "She's 8 years old. She doesn't get to decide. She decided to give me her father's jacket. She decided to believe that kindness means something. Maybe—" Frost paused, searching for words. "Maybe she deserves to know that believing in something matters, even when it doesn't work out." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she set the papers down on the porch railing and went inside. She came back with Lily. The girl looked between them, at her mother's red eyes, at Frost's grave expression, and something in her face tightened. That particular wariness of a child who'd learned to read the weather in adult silences. "Is something wrong?" Frost knelt down so he was eye level with her. "Lily, you remember when you gave me your daddy's jacket?" "Yes." "Why did you do that?" She thought about it, her small face serious. "Because you were cold, and Daddy always said we should help people when they need it." "What if helping doesn't work? What if you give everything you have and it's still not enough?" Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched the jacket, her father's jacket, running her fingers along the worn fabric. "Daddy told me a story once," she said, "about a man who planted a tree. He watered it and took care of it, but he died before it grew big enough to climb. And his daughter was sad because she thought all his work was wasted." She paused. "But then the tree kept growing, and her daughter climbed it, and her daughter's daughter, and the man who planted it, he never got to see it. But the tree was still there, because he started it." Frost felt something break open in his chest, not a crack, but a door, a window, something letting light into a room that had been dark for 15 years. "You're saying we should keep trying, even if we can't see how it ends." "I'm saying the trying is the point." Lily looked up at her mother. "Right, Mama?" Sarah's face crumpled. She dropped to her knees and pulled Lily into her arms, holding on like she was afraid to let go. "Right, baby. The trying is the point." Frost stood up. He looked at the settlement papers still sitting on the railing, then picked them up and tore them in half. "We've got 24 hours, he said. "Let's make them count." He walked to his bike and pulled out his phone. The screen showed a text from Decker. "Iron Range boys have an idea. Call me." He called. What Decker told him changed everything. "There's a biker bar in Duluth," Decker said. "The owner died last month. Left his estate to charity, any charity he would have approved of. His son's the executor, and he rides with the Iron Range chapter. He's been looking for the right cause." "How much?" 20,000. Maybe more, if we can convince him it's worth it." Frost looked at the house, at Sarah and Lily, still holding each other on the porch. "Get him on the phone," he said, "and tell every writer within 200 miles to be here by tomorrow morning. We're going to show this town what kindness looks like when it shows up in force." Friday dawned cold and bright, the April sun burning through the mist that hung over Lake Mille Lacs like a promise waiting to be kept. The first bikes arrived at 7. Iron Range riders from Duluth and Hibbing, their chrome catching the early light as they rumbled down the 2-lane blacktop toward the Kowalski house. By 8, there were 50. By 9, over 100. They lined the road on both sides, parked in neat rows, their riders standing in. Clusters with coffee cups and purpose. Frost watched them arrive from the porch, where Lily sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes wide with wonder. "Are they all here for us?" she whispered. "Every one of them." "Why?" "Because you gave me your jacket. Because your mama asked for help. Because—" He paused, searching for words a child could hold. "Because sometimes, when one person is brave enough to be kind, it reminds everyone else that they can be kind too." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she slipped her hand into his, small and warm. "Daddy would have liked this," she said. "All these motorcycles, he always wanted one. Maybe he's watching. I know he is." The estate executor arrived at 10, a man named Jensen, mid-40s, with the weathered face of a long-distance rider and his father's name tattooed on his forearm. He walked through the crowd, shaking hands, clapping shoulders, and when he reached Frost, his eyes were bright with something that looked like recognition. "So you're the one who started all this?" "A little girl started it. I just made some calls." My old man would have loved this. He spent 40 years behind a bar, listening to people's troubles, helping where he could, died with more friends than money. Jensen pulled an envelope from his jacket. 23,000. That's what the estate can give. It's not enough by itself, but it's more than enough. Frost took the envelope. Combined with the crowdfunding, we're at 54,000. 1,000 short. Then we raised the last 1,000 here, past the helmet like the old days. The helmet went around. Riders who'd already given dug deeper, pulling crumpled bills from wallets, emptying pockets of change. A woman from the Iron Range chapter took off her silver bracelet and dropped it in. Someone else added a pocket knife with a bone handle, an heirloom that couldn't be replaced. By 11, the helmet held $1,200 in cash and valuables. 55,200, Mama June announced, counting it out on the porch while the crowd cheered. "We did it. We actually did it." Sarah stood in the doorway, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Lily broke away from Frost and ran to her, wrapping her arms around her mother's waist. "We get to stay, Mama. We get to stay." The black sedan pulled into the lot at 11:30. Dale Worthington from the bank stepped out, his face a mask of professional neutrality. Behind him came a second car, a silver Mercedes with Minneapolis plates. Martin Vance emerged, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the crowd of leather-clad bikers filling the road. "What is this?" he asked, his voice carrying across the sudden silence. Red stepped forward. He moved slowly, like a man walking toward something he'd been avoiding for years. "Martin." "Red." Vance's jaw tightened. "I should have known you'd be involved. This isn't about us. This isn't about the cabin or the fight or any of the old wounds. This is about a woman and her daughter who are about to lose their home." Red's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. "We've got the money, all of it. You can walk away, let the bank take our payment, and nobody has to lose anything. I've already made the offer. The bank accepted. The bank accepted a bid. They haven't closed yet. There's still time to do the right thing." Vance laughed, a short, bitter sound. "The right thing? That's rich, coming from you. You let my sister die in that cabin because you couldn't stand to sell it, couldn't stand to let go of something that was killing you both. Ellen wanted to stay. It was her choice. It was your stubbornness, your pride. You couldn't admit that holding on was hurting her, so you held on until there was nothing left to hold." Vance's voice cracked. "I lost my sister because you couldn't let go, and now you want to lecture me about the right thing." The crowd was silent. Frost watched Red's face, the grief there, the guilt, the particular pain of a man confronting a truth he'd been running from. "You're right," Red said quietly. "I held on too tight. I thought if I let go of the cabin, I was letting go of her. And by the time I realized I was wrong, she was gone." He took a breath. "But this isn't about me. This is about that little girl over there, the one who gave away her dead father's jacket to a stranger because she believed kindness matters. You want to punish me? Fine, but don't punish her." Vance looked at Lily, really looked for the first time. She was standing on the porch beside her mother, watching with those serious eyes that saw too much. "The jacket," Vance said slowly. "That's how this started? A kid gave away a jacket?" Frost stepped forward. He unzipped the flannel-lined coat and held it out so Vance could see it clearly, the worn fabric, the patches, the years of use written into every crease and fold. Her father's jacket, the only thing she had left of him, and she gave it to me because I was cold. He reached into the inside pocket and pulled out the drawing, the stick figure family under the yellow sun. "She put this in the pocket so whoever wore the jacket would remember them. That's who you're trying to take this house from. A child who gives away everything she has because she believes the world gives back." Vance stared at the drawing. Something shifted in his face, a crack in the armor, a flicker of something human beneath the businessman's mask. "My sister used to draw like that," he said, so quiet Frost almost didn't hear. "Stick figures, yellow sun. She'd tape them all over the cabin every summer when we were kids. Said she was decorating." "What happened to those drawings?" "I don't know. Red probably still has them. In the cabin I wanted to sell." Vance's voice was rough. "I told myself I wanted the money, but really I couldn't stand looking at reminders of someone I'd lost. Easier to tear it down than to remember." Lily had left the porch. She walked through the crowd of bikers, small and determined, until she stood in front of Martin Vance. She looked up at him without fear. "Are you sad?" she asked. Vance blinked. "What? You look sad. Like Mama when she misses Daddy. Like Frost when he thinks about his little girl." She tilted her head. "I'm sad too sometimes, but Daddy said being sad is okay. It just means you loved something." Vance stood frozen. The crowd held its breath. Even Worthington from the bank had gone still, his professional mask slipping into something more human. "I had a sister," Vance said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. "She was my best friend, and when she got sick, I didn't know how to help her, so I fought with her husband instead. And then she was gone, and all I had left was the fighting. Maybe you could stop fighting now." Lily reached up and took his hand. "Maybe you could help us instead. That's what my daddy would do." The silence stretched. Frost watched Vance's face, the war there, the pride battling something deeper. He knew that war. He'd fought it himself for 15 years. "Mr. Worthington," Vance's voice was hoarse, "I'm withdrawing my offer." Worthington stepped forward. "Mr. Vance, the paperwork can be torn up. The bank will get their money from these people." He gestured at the crowd. "Let them keep the house." "Sir, I really think—" "I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm telling you what's going to happen." Vance looked at Red. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. "Go see the cabin sometime. Ellen's drawings are still on the walls. I couldn't bring myself to take them down." Red's face crumpled. He stepped forward and pulled his brother-in-law into an embrace. Awkward, stiff, two men who'd forgotten how to be family trying to remember. "I'm sorry," Red said, "for everything." "Me too." They held on for a long moment. Then Vance stepped back, straightened his suit, and walked to his car without another word. The Mercedes pulled away, disappearing down the road toward whatever came next. Sarah dropped to her knees on the porch. She was sobbing. Real sobs, the kind that shook her whole body, the kind she'd been holding back for 6 months of fighting alone. Lily ran to her, wrapping her arms around her mother's neck. "We get to stay, Mama. I told you kindness comes back." Frost climbed the porch steps. He pulled the envelope from his pocket, $55,000 in donations and desperate faith, and set it in Sarah's lap. "For the bank. The house is yours." Sarah looked up at him. Her face was streaked with tears, but she was smiling, the first real smile he'd seen from her. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to, just—" He paused, thinking of Anna, of all the years he'd spent frozen. "Just let people help when you need it. That's thanks enough." Lily tugged on his jacket, her father's jacket, and he knelt down to her level. "Will you come back?" she asked. "To visit?" "Try and stop me." She reached up and touched his face, her small hand warm against his weathered skin. "You're not cold anymore," she said. The jacket worked. Frost felt something loosen in his chest, a knot that had been tied for 15 years, finally letting go. "Yeah," he said. "I think it did. Summer came to Mila Locks the way it always did, slowly, then all at once. The ice went out in May, and by June, the lake was alive with boats and laughter and the particular golden light that made everything look like a memory worth keeping. Frost rode up from the Twin Cities on the first Saturday of the month, the way he'd done every month since April. The road was familiar now, every curve, every pothole, every stretch of blacktop that led him back to the little house by the gas station where a girl had once given away her father's jacket. Lily was waiting on the porch when he pulled in. She'd grown 2 inches since spring, her dark hair longer now, her smile coming easier. She ran to meet him before he'd even killed the engine. "You're late," she said, but she was grinning. "Traffic in the cities. You know how it is." "I don't. I'm 8. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the house. "Mama made pie. She's been learning." The house looked different than it had in April. Fresh paint on the shutters, new planters on the porch, a garden taking shape in the side yard where Sarah had started growing tomatoes and beans. The sagging porch had been rebuilt. Red and a crew from the Iron Range had come down in May, spent a weekend with hammers and saws and the particular satisfaction of men who needed to build something with their hands. Sarah met him at the door with flour on her apron and a warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. "She's been watching for you since 8 this morning," she said. "Wouldn't eat breakfast until she saw your bike." "Sorry to keep her waiting." "Don't be. The anticipation's half the fun." She stepped aside to let him in. "Coffee's fresh, pie's cooling. Lily, let the man breathe." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Sarah had nearly signed away her home, now covered with a checkered cloth and a vase of wildflowers Lily had picked that morning. The pie was cherry, slightly lopsided, perfect. "I talked to Christine," Frost said. Sarah's eyebrows rose. "Your ex-wife?" "First time in 12 years. I called her last week." He turned his coffee cup in his hands, watching the steam rise. "Told her about Lily, about you, about what happened here. She cried. I didn't expect that." "What did she say?" "That she was glad I'd found something worth thawing out for. That was her word. Thawing." He smiled, small and private. "She said Anna would have liked Lily, that they would have been friends." "Would they?" "Yeah, I think so." He looked at Lily, who was picking at her pie crust with the focused intensity of a child, solving a puzzle. "Anna was like her. Gave everything away. Couldn't stand to see anyone cold or hungry or sad. I used to tell her she'd empty herself out if she wasn't careful." "What did she say?" "She said that was the point, that you had to empty yourself out to make room for what came next." His voice caught. "I didn't understand what she meant. Not until this year." Lily looked up. What did she mean? Frost considered how to explain 15 years of grief and its slow, painful loosening to an 8-year-old. "She meant that holding on too tight makes you stuck, and sometimes you have to let go of the heavy things so you can carry the new ones." Lily nodded solemnly. "Like when I gave you Daddy's jacket. I was holding on too tight, but then I gave it away, and something better came back." "Something better?" "You." She said it simply, like it was obvious. "And all the other people, the bikers and the nice man who gave us the money, and Mr. Red who fixed our porch, they all came because I let go." Frost didn't trust himself to speak. He just reached out and ruffled her hair, and she ducked away, giggling. Red and Martin Vance had met at the cabin in late May, the first time they'd been there together since Ellen's funeral. Frost heard about it secondhand, from Decker, who'd heard it from someone in the Iron Range chapter. They'd spent 2 days going through Ellen's things, sorting memories, talking about the years they'd lost to anger and grief. They weren't healed. That kind of wound didn't heal in a weekend, but they were trying. Sometimes that was enough. The North Country Riders had started a new tradition, the Lily Kowalski Memorial Ride. It wasn't a memorial for anyone dead, Lily had insisted on that, but a celebration of kindness, a reminder that small acts could ripple outward in ways you couldn't predict. Every April, riders from across the state gathered at Mille Lacs, passed the helmet for a family in need, and ended the day with pie at the Kowalski house. The first ride had raised $11,000 for a veteran in Brainerd who was about to lose his farm. The second, they'd already planned, would help a widow in Duluth, whose husband had died in a mill accident. The ripples kept spreading. Frost still wore the jacket. Thomas Kowalski's jacket, now his own. He'd had a patch sewn onto the inside pocket. Anna's name, her dates, a small purple ribbon for the leukemia that had taken her. It sat next to the drawing Lily had made, now laminated to protect it from the road. Sometimes, on long rides, he'd press his hand against his chest and feel both of them there, his daughter and someone else's father, both gone, both somehow still present in the warmth the jacket held. After pie, Lily dragged him outside to see the garden. She'd planted a section herself, sunflowers, she said, because they always looked happy. They were just starting to sprout, tiny green shoots pushing up through the dark earth. "I'm going to grow them, taller than the house," she announced. "Daddy always wanted sunflowers, but he never had time to plant them. I think he'd be proud. I know he would." She knelt down and touched one of the sprouts with careful fingers. "I talk to him sometimes, at night before bed. I tell him about you and Mama and all the things that happened. I think he can hear me." "I think so too." She looked up at him, her dark eyes serious. "Do you talk to Anna?" Frost was quiet for a moment. The breeze came off the lake, carrying the smell of water and pine and the particular sweetness of a Minnesota summer. "I'm starting to," he said. "I forgot how for a while, but I'm remembering." Lily nodded, satisfied. She stood and slipped her hand into his, the way she always did now, without hesitation. "Come on," she said. "Let's go see the lake. The water's warm enough to put your feet in." They walked together across the grass, toward the water, toward whatever came next. Behind them, Sarah stood on the porch and watched them go, a man who'd been frozen and a girl who'd thawed him, walking side by side into the long, golden afternoon. The jacket was warm on Frost's shoulders. It always was now. Sometimes the smallest hand reaches the deepest cold, and sometimes letting go is how we learn to hold on again. If this story moved you, subscribe so you never miss one. And tell us in the comments what small act of kindness changed your life.